You followed the recipe, you measured everything carefully, you did not skip a single step. And somehow, what came out of that oven was flat, dense, and nothing like the picture. And the worst part? You have absolutely no idea why. Here is the answer, and it has been sitting in your kitchen cabinet this whole time. 2 little white powders. Same color, same texture, almost identical names. Baking soda and baking powder. Most people treat them like they're the same thing. They are not. And that one mistake has been quietly destroying your baked goods for years. By the time this video ends, you will never mix them up again. You will know exactly which one to use, exactly why it matters, and exactly what has been going wrong in your kitchen this whole time. Let's fix this right now. Let's start with baking soda, because it is the simpler one, and understanding it completely is the key to understanding everything else. Baking soda is one single ingredient, pure sodium bicarbonate. That is its entire identity. It is a fine white powder, and sitting alone in a bowl, it does absolutely nothing. Zero. If you add it to your batter without the right conditions, it just sits there. Your baked goods will come out exactly as flat as if you never added it at all. So what does baking soda actually need to work? It needs acid. The moment baking soda touches something acidic, a reaction happens. The two combine and release carbon dioxide gas. Tiny bubbles form inside your batter, and as your batter heats up in the oven, those bubbles expand. They push everything upward. That is your rise. That is the entire difference between a fluffy muffin and a hockey puck. Now, what counts as acidic in a recipe? More things than you probably realize. Buttermilk is acidic, so is yogurt, sour cream, lemon juice, orange juice, vinegar, honey, molasses, brown sugar, natural cocoa powder, and even coffee. All of these will activate baking soda the moment they come into contact with it. But here's the critical thing most people never learn. That reaction starts immediately. The second your wet acidic ingredients hit the baking soda, the clock starts. Bubbles form and they start escaping into the air right away. If you mix your batter and then walk away to check your phone, answer the door, or just let it sit on the counter for 20 minutes, those bubbles are already gone. There is nothing left to lift your bake, and you pull something flat out of the oven and wonder what happened. This is why recipes that use baking soda always tell you to mix quickly and bake immediately. It is not a suggestion, it is science. Now, let's talk about baking powder. And this is where things get genuinely interesting. Baking powder is not a single ingredient, it's a blend. The main component inside it is baking soda, but baking powder also contains a dry acid already built right into the mixture, plus a small amount of cornstarch to absorb moisture and keep everything stable inside the container. So baking powder is essentially baking soda that already brought its own acid to the party. You do not need to supply an acidic ingredient in your recipe because the baking powder already has one. It is completely self-contained. You just mix it in and let it work. But here's the part that makes baking powder genuinely brilliant. Most baking powder sold anywhere today is what is called double-acting baking powder. And that phrase, double-acting, is not just a label. It describes something that completely changes how your baking works. With double-acting baking powder, you get 2 separate reactions happening at 2 completely different times. The first reaction happens the moment the powder gets wet. When your batter comes together and the baking powder dissolves into the liquid, you get a small initial release of carbon dioxide, just enough to get things started. Then your batter goes into the oven, and when it hits the heat, a second, much larger reaction fires off. More gas, more bubbles, a powerful second burst of lift happening right when your bake needs it most. Think about what that means for you in real life. You can mix your batter and let it rest. You can refrigerate pancake batter overnight and still get fluffy pancakes in the morning. You have a safety net. The big lift is being held in reserve, waiting for the heat of the oven to release it. Compare that to baking soda, where your entire reaction starts immediately and runs out fast. Baking powder is far more forgiving, and that forgiveness was designed specifically for home bakers who are not working in a commercial kitchen on a strict timer. Now let's get to the part that actually changes how you bake. When do you use which one? Here's the simplest way to think about it. Look for the acid in your recipe. The acid tells you everything. If your recipe contains an acidic ingredient, buttermilk, yogurt, sour cream, lemon juice, vinegar, cocoa powder, honey, brown sugar, coffee, or molasses, then the acid is already in your recipe. Baking soda has something to react with. That recipe was designed for baking soda. Recipes that typically use baking soda include buttermilk pancakes, banana bread, red velvet cake, chocolate chip cookies, gingerbread, and carrot cake. All of these have acidic ingredients already working in both the flavor and the chemistry at the same time. Now, if your recipe has no obvious acidic ingredient, a plain vanilla cake, a yellow birthday cake, white biscuits, simple muffins, or shortbread, then there is no acid waiting to activate baking soda. You need baking powder. It brings its own acid. Problem solved. And then there are recipes that use both at the same time. This trips a lot of people up, but it makes perfect sense once you understand what each one is doing. In recipes that call for both, the baking powder is the main lifting agent. It is doing the heavy work of making your batter rise. The baking soda is there for different reasons. It neutralizes some of the excess acid in the recipe, which balances the flavor and removes any sharpness. And more importantly, baking soda is what gives your baked goods that gorgeous golden brown color on the outside. It triggers a browning reaction that baking powder alone simply cannot produce. Without baking soda, your cookies might be perfectly soft on the inside, but look pale and dull on the outside. With it, you get that warm, caramelized, bakery-quality color that makes everything look as good as it tastes. So when you see both in a recipe, neither one is redundant. They are a team, and each one is doing something the other one cannot do alone. Now, the mistakes. This section alone might save you from years of future frustration. The most damaging mistake people make is treating baking soda and baking powder as direct substitutes for each other. You cannot do this, not one for one, not ever. Baking soda is 3 to 4 times more powerful than baking powder. If a recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of baking powder and you use 1 teaspoon of baking soda instead, you have just used 4 times too much leavening. Your batter might rise aggressively in the oven and then collapse completely in the middle. The texture will be wrong, and the taste will be genuinely unpleasant. Too much baking soda leaves a metallic, soapy, bitter aftertaste that no amount of frosting or glaze can cover up. You will taste it in the first bite. Everyone will taste it. It ruins the whole thing. Going the other direction creates its own problems. Using baking powder where baking soda is called for means you would need 3 or 4 times as much just to match the strength. And even then, if the recipe depends on that acid-base reaction for its specific flavor, the result simply will not be the same. The second mistake is under-measuring. A lot of people use a little less than the recipe says, thinking they are being cautious about that metallic taste. But too little leavening means not enough gas, not enough bubbles, not enough rise. Your cake comes out dense. Your muffins stay flat on top. Your pancakes are chewy instead of fluffy. Measure precisely. Level off your spoon. Do not guess. The third mistake is one almost nobody talks about, but almost everyone is guilty of: using old, expired product. Both baking soda and baking powder lose their effectiveness over time. Baking soda can stay potent for about a year if sealed properly, but an open box sitting in the back of your cabinet for 2 years, it is probably dead. Baking powder degrades even faster. Once opened, moisture can sneak in and trigger small reactions inside the container, slowly draining its power. After 6 months to a year, it may not have enough strength left to properly raise your baked goods. The frustrating thing is that expired leaveners look completely normal. Same white powder, same container, zero visible sign that anything is wrong. But your baking results will tell the story. Dense muffins, flat cakes, pancakes that never quite puffed the way they should. Testing them takes 10 seconds. For baking powder, drop a teaspoon into a cup of hot water. If it bubbles immediately and actively, it is good. If you get a weak fizzle or nothing at all, throw it out today. For baking soda, put a teaspoon into a small bowl of white vinegar or lemon juice. Strong, immediate fizzing means it is alive. Weak reaction or no reaction at all means it is finished. Both cost almost nothing. Replace them regularly. It is the easiest improvement you can make to your baking, and it will cost you less than a cup of coffee. Here is something worth pausing on for just a moment, because we genuinely take these ingredients for granted. For most of human history, if you wanted baked goods to rise, you needed yeast, and yeast takes time. Hours of waiting, proofing, and fermentation. You had to plan an entire day around your baking. Quick-baked goods that did not use yeast were simply flat and dense because there was no fast way to create gas bubbles inside a batter. Then baking soda became widely available to home cooks in the 1800s, and it changed everything almost overnight. Suddenly, a home baker could make something light and fluffy in under an hour. No yeast, no waiting, no fermentation at all. The speed and simplicity of home baking changed completely. Baking powder came a little later, and it was developed with one specific purpose: to make the process even more accessible, to remove the need to think carefully about which ingredients in your recipe were acidic, to give home bakers a reliable, forgiving, all-in-one tool that works even when you're not a trained chef. Every fluffy stack of pancakes you have ever eaten, every soft birthday cake, every perfect batch of cookies, every quick bread that rose beautifully in the oven, none of it happens without baking soda or baking powder quietly doing their work inside the batter. They are two of the most underappreciated ingredients in all of cooking. Let's bring it all home now. Baking soda is pure sodium bicarbonate. It needs an acid in your recipe to activate. Once it meets that acid, the reaction starts immediately and the clock is running. It is 3 to 4 times stronger than baking powder. Use it when your recipe already contains acidic ingredients, and once your batter is mixed, get it into the oven fast. Baking powder is a mixture of baking soda, a built-in dry acid, and cornstarch. It does not need outside acid because it already has one. It is double-acting, meaning it reacts twice, once when it gets wet and again when it hits the heat. Use it when your recipe has no acidic ingredients. It is more forgiving and gives you more time to work. When a recipe uses both, baking soda handles browning and flavor balance. Baking powder handles the main lift. They are doing different jobs at the same time, and you need both. Never swap them one for one. Test them before every important bake, replace them regularly, and always look for the acid in your recipe first. The acid tells you which one you need. That is everything. The complete truth about baking soda and baking powder, finally explained in a way that actually makes sense. Here's what I want you to do right now. Go to your kitchen, pull out your baking soda and your baking powder. Check how old they are. Test them with hot water and vinegar right now. If they fail, throw them out today and replace them this week. That single action will immediately improve your baking. If this video helped you finally understand something that has been confusing for years, please give it a like. It helps this video reach more people who are dealing with the exact same frustration you just solved. And if you want more videos that explain the real science behind everyday cooking in plain, simple language, hit subscribe. A new one comes out every week. Thanks for watching. Now go bake something amazing.